Hey there, survivor. If you can hear this, it means you're still alive. This is Jack's Nightmares, and wherever you're listening from, I'm glad you made it. Now get comfortable, and imagine this. The cities are breaking apart fast, and every road turns into a trap. The only thing I've got is a small boat, a few tools, and one chance to disappear before the outbreak spreads down the coast. A remote island sounds safe until you realize what the ocean can carry to your shoreline, and how loud a single mistake can be. I don't have a bunker. I have a cave, a skiff, and whatever I can build with my own hands before someone else finds it. I'm on the dock behind Harbor Point Marina, stepping over a coil of wet line somebody left in the walking path again. The air reeks of salt, gasoline, and dead bait. My hands are already dirty, and it isn't even noon. I've got a work order folded in my back pocket, and a cheap pen that keeps disappearing every time I set it down. I'm on the dock behind Harbor Point Marina, stepping around a coil of wet line that somebody left in the walking path again. The air smells of salt, gasoline, and dead bait. My hands are already dirty, and it isn't even noon. I've got a work order folded in my back pocket and a cheap pen that keeps vanishing every time I set it down. A man named Curtis is supposed to pick up his center console today. He wants the bilge pump checked, the running lights fixed, and the steering cable looked at because he says it feels off. Curtis also sends messages at midnight and then acts surprised when nobody answers. I'm not answering at midnight. I'm here now. That's what he gets. I step onto his boat and the deck flexes under my boot. The sun is bright enough that the white gel coat hurts my eyes. I pop the console hatch and lean in. It's hot in there. I check the battery connections first. Corrosion. Not terrible, but enough to cause weird problems when the boat bounces. I scrape it with a small wire brush and wipe it clean with a rag that used to be white. My phone buzzes in my pocket. I don't pull it out right away. Half the time it's spam. The other half it's my boss, Nolan, asking where I am while I'm standing inside the boat he's paying me to work on. I finish tightening the negative terminal and then check the bilge pump float switch by hand. It clicks. Pump kicks on. Good. I pull the phone out. It's my sister, Marin. One text. You seeing the news? I type back with my thumb. Working. What about it? She answers fast. Videos. People attacking. Hospital in Savannah. Close your doors. Savannah isn't next door, but it isn't far either. News travels faster than storms now. I pocket the phone and stand up, scanning the marina out of habit. Boats rocking at their slips. A couple tourists taking pictures at the end of the pier. A kid with a fishing rod bouncing a lure off the dock rails. Normal. I keep working. Running lights are easy. The wiring is old and stiff. I pull the bow light housing, see a cracked gasket, and make a note to replace it. Water got in and turned the terminals green. I cut back the wire, crimp on new connectors, and heat shrink them. I'm careful with the heat gun. Too much heat on old wire and it turns brittle. A siren wails somewhere inland, loud enough to echo off the storage sheds behind the marina. It fades, then another joins it. Nolan comes out of the office with a paper cup of coffee and a face that says he's been staring at his phone all morning. You got messages? He asks. From my sister, I say. Savannah trouble. Nolan nods once. Tight. He isn't a talker when he's worried. He's the kind of guy who rearranges tools and pretends it counts as solving problems. He walks down the dock a few slips and stops beside a pontoon boat. He stares at it without touching it. My phone buzzes again. Emergency alert. The sound is different from a normal text. I open it. State advisory. Remain indoors if possible. Avoid hospitals. Avoid large gatherings. Await further instructions. That isn't a weather alert. It isn't a boil water notice. It's vague in a way that makes people fill in the blank with whatever scares them the most. Curtis calls me. I don't answer. I don't need Curtis's opinion on anything today. I lock the phone and get back to the boat. I test the light again. It works. I write the work order note. Done. Across the fairway, a couple walks fast towards the parking lot. The woman keeps looking back over her shoulder. The man is talking into his phone, one hand waving in that angry way people wave when the person on the other end can't see it. Nolan steps into the office and comes back out with the marina's handheld radio. He clips it to his belt and turns it on. The speaker spits out short bursts of chatter from the harbor master channel. Boats asking for bridge openings. Somebody asking if the fuel dock is open. Somebody else warning about traffic piling up on the main road. I climb off Curtis's boat and jump onto the dock. The wood is warm under my boots. I walk toward the office. Nolan is locking the snack fridge and pulling cash from the register into a canvas bank bag. "You closing?" I ask. "Half the staff didn't come in," Nolan says. "Fuel truck isn't coming. I'm not running a marina with no fuel and no help while people are acting wild." He looks at me. "You got somewhere to go?" I live 10 minutes away in a small rental behind a bait shop. Going home means sitting in a thin-walled box listening to sirens and guessing if my door will hold if somebody decides it won't. Staying at the marina means being near boats, fuel, tools, and water. It also means being near people who want boats, fuel, tools, and water. "I'll finish up and head out," I say. I don't promise anything else. Nolan nods again. He doesn't tell me to be careful. He knows that advice doesn't change anything. He says, "If you need to grab your stuff, do it now. Don't wait until dark." I walk back down the dock to my small tool cart. I start putting my gear away fast, not neat. Wrenches, crimpers, heat shrink, electrical tape, spare connectors. I grab my roll of duct tape too. People laugh at duct tape until they need it. A crash comes from the parking lot. Not a little sound, metal against metal, then a shout, then another shout that turns into screaming. Nolan runs out of the office, keys in his hand. I drop my cart handle and move toward the parking lot without thinking it through. The marina gate is open. It's always open during business hours. A sedan sits crooked across 2 parking spaces. Its front end is pushed into the side of a pickup truck. The sedan's driver door is open. A man is half out of it, slumped, moving wrong, not drunk wrong. His head is jerking in small snaps and his arms are grabbing at the air. 2 people are backing away from him. One is a woman in a sun hat. The other is a guy in flip-flops holding his phone up recording. The man from the sedan turns toward them fast. He doesn't stumble. He launches. The woman in the sun hat runs. The guy in flip-flops freezes long enough to get caught. The man hits him, drives him to the ground, and clamps onto his shoulder with his mouth. It's quick. It's not a struggle with punches and yelling. It's an ugly, direct action. The guy's phone clatters onto the asphalt and keeps recording from the ground. Nolan shouts, "Hey!" and starts forward. I grab his arm hard and yank him back. I don't explain. I pull him away toward the dock. Nolan resists for half a step and then stops when he sees what the man is doing. The woman in the sun hat reaches the marina office door and slams into it, but Nolan locked it. She bangs on the glass. Nolan points and yells for her to move down toward the water, away from the parking lot. She hesitates, then runs the direction he points. The man on the ground tries to push the attacker off. He can't get leverage. The attacker keeps his head down and his body weight forward. The sound coming out of him isn't speech, it's harsh noise. Another person runs in from the street entrance, a teenager, wide eyes, holding a skateboard under one arm. The teen sees the scene and turns to bolt. The attacker lifts his head, face smeared, and pivots toward the movement. He stands and sprints. The teenager drops the skateboard and runs, shoes slapping the pavement. The attacker closes the distance fast, too fast. He grabs the teen by the back of the shirt and yanks him down. The teen hits the ground hard. The attacker drops on him. Nolan backs up and fumbles with his keys, trying to unlock the office again. He isn't thinking about the lock now. He's thinking about the gun safe inside. I know it's there. Nolan keeps it for break-ins. It's a small safe bolted under the counter. I've seen it when he forgets to kick the cabinet shut. I don't wait for Nolan. I run to my cart and grab the fire extinguisher mounted to the side of the dock box. I yank it loose. My hands feel steady because they're busy. I sprint back toward the parking lot, staying near the edge, keeping the cars between me and the attacker. The attacker is still on the teenager. I get close enough to see the teen's hands pushing at the attacker's head. It isn't working. I pull the extinguisher pin and blast the attacker's face. White powder slams into him. He recoils, head snapping up, arms flailing. He stands and stumbles, rubbing at his eyes. The teenager rolls away and scrambles on hands and knees toward the street. I don't look at the teenager's neck or arms. I keep my eyes on the attacker. The attacker coughs, then lunges toward me. I drop the extinguisher and swing the dock hook I grabbed off the ground near a piling. I aim for distance, not damage. The hook catches the attacker's shoulder and shoves him back. He stumbles into the side of the sedan. The metal dents with his weight. He rebounds and comes again. I swing again, and the hook catches his forearm. It doesn't stop him. He keeps coming, arms reaching. I back up fast, almost trip over the extinguisher, and then pivot toward the dock. The gate is still open. I don't want him on the dock where there's nowhere to move without getting pinned between slips. Nolan is at the office door now, half inside, yelling for me to get back. I don't go to him. I go wide, toward the fuel dock because it's open space. The attacker follows, head down, chasing movement. A boat horn blares from the channel. Long, loud blast. The attacker twitches at the sound and turns his head. His chase line breaks for a second. He pivots toward the water, then back toward me, then toward the water again. That tells me something clear. Sound pulls him harder than fear pulls me. I sprint toward the dock edge and grab the loose end of a heavy mooring line. I yank it free from a cleat, then swing it low and hard at the attacker's legs. It wraps around his ankles and he falls forward. He hits the dock with his hands, tries to scramble up, but the line is tangled. I don't stand over him. I don't try to finish anything. I run. I run back toward the office and shout, "Lock the gate." Nolan is holding a compact handgun with shaking hands. He points it at the attacker from the office doorway. Nolan hesitates. Nolan doesn't fire. The attacker is thrashing, trying to get up. Nolan backs into the office and slams the door. The attacker gets 1 foot free and then lurches toward the office, guided by the noise of the slam. He hits the glass with his shoulder. The glass holds. He hits it again. I yank the marina gate shut myself. The gate is a chain-link panel on a rolling track. It isn't built to stop a crowd. I slam it and drop the padlock through the latch. My hands move without smoothness. Metal clacks. The lock catches. From the street, more screams rise. Not inside the marina. Out there. The kind of sound that spreads along a road. A car engine revs, and then a sharp impact. Someone is running past the entrance without coming in. Eyes forward. Not looking for help. Looking for distance. Nolan opens the office door a crack. "Get inside," he says. I don't go inside. I point at the docks. We have boats. People are going to rush this place. Nolan looks past me toward the channel. He understands the same thing a second after I say it. Boats are exits. Boats are also traps if the wrong people get them first. Nolan steps out, locks the office door behind him, and keeps the handgun low, not waving it. "What do you want to do?" he asks. His voice is flatter than usual. I look at the slips. I look at the fuel dock. I look at the storage shed where Nolan keeps spare lines, tarps, a few jugs of oil, and random parts. I look at the small skiff tied at the far end, the one nobody claims because it's old and it looks rough. I've worked on its motor more than once. It runs, but it complains. "I'm taking the skiff," I say. "I'm grabbing water, dry food, tools. I'm going where cars can't follow." Nolan swallows and nods. "You got family?" "My sister's inland," I say. "I'm not getting to her by road." Nolan turns and points at the storage shed. "Take what you can carry. Don't take all of it. I'm staying with the office until I can't." That's Nolan's choice. He's tied to this place in his head. Rent, loans, responsibility, whatever. I don't argue with him. Arguing is wasted movement. I jog to the storage shed and shove the door open. Inside, the air is cooler. It smells of rope, oil, and mildew. I grab a 5-gallon water jug and another smaller jug. I don't know if they're clean. I rinse them at the dock spigot fast, then fill them. The water is city water for now. It won't last. I grab canned food from the office snack shelf through the shed's side window. Nolan must have forgotten it was unlocked. I take what won't crush. Cans of beans, tuna packs, peanut butter, crackers, a bag of trail mix. I take a box of trash bags. I take a roll of heavy contractor tape. From my cart, I take my tool bag, my headlamp, 2 flashlights, and spare batteries. I add a small first aid kit from the shed. I check it quick. Gauze, tape, antiseptic wipes, a small bottle of pain pills, a few bandages. Not much. It's still more than nothing. Nolan appears at the shed door. He holds out the handgun with a spare magazine. "If you take it, don't wave it around," he says. "Keep it dry. Don't think it fixes everything." I take it and check the magazine with my thumb the way Nolan taught me months ago when he insisted everybody should know. I don't feel brave. I feel responsible for what happens if I use it wrong. I tuck it into the waistband of my work pants and pull my shirt over it. I take the spare magazine and put it in my pocket. I drag the skiff's bowline loose and hop in. The skiff is about 15 feet, old fiberglass, chipped paint, patched in 2 places with mismatched resin. The outboard is a small 4-stroke that likes clean fuel and steady hands. I don't have clean fuel. I have whatever is in the marina's emergency can. I pour fuel into the tank with a shaky funnel and cap it. I don't top it off. Extra fuel is extra weight and extra spill risk. I load the water jugs low, centered, and wedge them with rope so they don't slide. I load food in a dry bag. I load my tool bag. I tuck the first aid kit under the seat. Nolan stands on the dock watching me. The attacker is still at the office door, slamming into the glass in uneven bursts. I hear more banging now, not just one body. I don't look for where the others came from. I don't have time to count. I pull the skiff away from the dock by hand until I'm pointed down the fairway. I don't start the engine until I'm clear of the tight slip lanes. If the engine stalls here, I'll drift into somebody's boat and waste time. When I yank the starter cord, it coughs once, then again. On the third pull, it catches and rattles. I keep the throttle low. The engine noise feels too loud in my ears. I don't rev it. I ease out of the marina at the slowest speed that still gives me control. At the channel mouth, I see smoke rising inland. Dark column, not just a grill fire. I hear distant pops that could be fireworks. I don't try to decide. I keep my eyes on the water and the shoreline. A smaller boat cuts across my path from the main river, overloaded, bow high, stern low. 3 people in it. The driver doesn't look at me. The other 2 are turned backward, watching the shoreline. One of them is holding a paddle, not using it, gripping it hard. I stay out of their way. I don't wave. I don't shout. If I shout, somebody will answer, and answers come with questions and requests and problems. I keep moving. The island I'm heading for is one I know from work runs, a long strip of scrub and pine, low dunes, a rockier side on the eastern edge. People camp there sometimes. There's a shallow cove where you can beach a small boat if you pick your timing. There's also a cut in the rocks that stays shadowed at low tide. I found it last year when I was stuck out there waiting on a tow. I don't run the engine all the way up to the island. I cut it early and drift, then paddle the last stretch. The paddle is an old aluminum one from the skiff's floor. The blade is scuffed. It still pushes water. The cove is quiet. No tents, no coolers, no footprints that look fresh from this distance. I beach the skiff gently and drag it higher so the tide doesn't steal it. I tie the bowline around a piece of driftwood wedged in the sand. It isn't perfect, but it buys time. I carry my load in 2 trips. Water first, then tools and food. Each trip across the sand is slow. The jugs cut into my fingers. I set them down inside the shadowed cut between rocks and wipe my hands on my pants. The fabric is already damp with sweat and salt. The cave entrance is more of a low opening that leads to a wider pocket. It smells bad. Seaweed and old wet stone. There's bird droppings near the mouth and crab shells piled in a corner. I step carefully and listen before I move deeper. If something lives in here, I want warning. I move in far enough that the light drops. My headlamp stays off. I use daylight as long as I can. I find a shelf of rock that sits a couple feet above the floor. It's dry right now. It won't stay dry if the tide comes high or a storm pushes water in. I don't pretend it's safe forever. I treat it as a start. I drag in driftwood and flatboards from the beach, stuff that looks washed up from docks. I stack it on the shelf and tie it together with rope so it doesn't slide. I lay a tarp over it and tuck the edges under. The tarp smells of plastic and fuel. I don't care. I set the water jugs in the deepest spot I can reach without losing daylight. I put food in a dry bag and hang it from a rock knob with rope, higher than the crabs can reach. I don't know if rats are on the island. I don't assume they aren't. I walk back outside and scan the water. The horizon is empty. The channel looks calm. The mainland looks wrong even from here. Smoke is still rising in one spot, and now I see another thinner line farther north. I check the skiff again. Fuel cap tight. Line secure. I take a rag and wipe salt spray off the motor housing. I don't do it because I think it saves it forever. I do it because salt kills engines fast when you ignore it. I take the handgun out and check it again, then wrap it in a plastic bag and tuck it high inside my tool bag. If it gets soaked with salt water, it turns into a problem instead of a solution. I keep the spare magazine separate, wrapped too. I spend the rest of the daylight making the cave less hostile. I shovel out droppings with a flat piece of board and throw it outside. I stack rocks at the entrance to narrow it, not to seal it. I want a choke point, not a coffin. I mark the exit path with 2 pieces of rope tied low on rocks so I can find my way in the dark if I have to. I try to make a small cooking spot outside the cave mouth, behind a rock that blocks direct view from the water. I don't light anything yet. Smoke on a clear day carries over water. Smell carries too. I set up the spot and leave it cold. As the sun drops, I move everything I need into reach. Flashlight, headlamp, first aid kit. 1 water bottle decanted from the big jug. 1 can of food, my knife, my tool bag. I keep the rest deeper inside. If someone steps into the cave, I don't want my whole life sitting right at the mouth. Night comes quick. The island gets quiet in a way that makes small sounds stand out. Water slaps the rocks. Wind moves through scrub. A bird cries once and then stops. I sit on the rock shelf and eat crackers with peanut butter. No fire, no light. I drink 2 careful swallows of water and cap the bottle tight. I wipe my hands with a damp wipe and then let them dry in the air. From far out on the water, an engine hum reaches me. Not loud, but steady. It comes closer. I shift my position deeper into the cave and kill even the small sounds I'm making. I don't move gear. I don't touch the water jugs. I don't want plastic to click. The engine note changes, drops, then rises again. Whoever is out there is searching or circling. I hear a second sound, a shout, then another, muffled by distance. I can't make out words. A light sweeps across the water once, then twice. A handheld spotlight, not a lighthouse. It skims the beach. It doesn't hit the cave mouth directly, but it gets close enough that I see the reflected glow on the rock wall. I pull back farther into the cave until I'm pressed against cold stone. I keep my eyes on the entrance gap and listen for footsteps in sand. If somebody comes ashore, I need to decide fast whether to stay hidden or move the skiff and risk the engine noise. The light outside sweeps once more, then drifts away. The engine sound drops, then climbs, then fades into the distance. No voices reach the beach after that. No crunch of sand, no footsteps. Only water moving through the rocks and the slow shift of tide. I stay in the same spot until my legs start to cramp. I shift my weight in small moves, careful with every scrape of fabric against stone. I keep my headlamp off. Darkness inside the cave is safer than a careless beam that can spill out through the entrance. When the engine noise is gone for long enough that it feels real, I crawl forward. I keep my hands low, feel the ground before I set weight down, and stop twice to listen. My water bottle is where I left it. I take one swallow and cap it with my fingers wrapped around the lid so it doesn't click. I sit on the rock shelf and watch the entrance. I do not sleep. I make a rule in my head and stick to it. I don't sleep until I can confirm the beach is empty at first light. Grey shows up outside, thin at first. The cave mouth turns from a black hole into a shape with edges. I grab my paddle and the dock hook and ease forward until I can see sand and the line where water meets shore. My skiff is still there, pulled high. No fresh footprints in the sand around it that I can see from the cave. The tide is lower than it was at night. The cove looks calm. Calm doesn't mean safe. I step out of the cave and move along the rocks instead of crossing open sand. The rocks are rough and wet in places, and I keep my weight low. I stop behind a scrub bush and scan the water again. No boat close, no shine of a hull, no engine hum. I walk to the skiff and check the bow line. Still tied, still tight. I look for any sign that someone touched it. The sand near the stern is smooth. No drag marks, no new trash, no dropped food wrapper. The first problem is obvious now that daylight is back. A skiff on a beach is a signal. Somebody cruising the shoreline with binoculars can spot it and guess the rest. I stare at the cove, then at the brush line farther up the beach. The brush isn't thick, but it can hide the skiff's shape if I do the work. I untie the bowline and drag the skiff sideways, slow and quiet. Sand grabs at the hull and makes a scraping sound. I stop twice and listen out toward the water, then keep pulling. I angle it toward a gap between two low dunes where scrub grows thicker. It takes time. The hull fights me, and the skiff is heavier than it looks when it is loaded with water and food. I move some gear out first. I set the jugs in the shade and keep the food bag closed. I drag the skiff again, using the dock hook as a lever under the transom to shift it inch by inch. When the skiff is tucked behind brush, it isn't invisible, but it no longer sits on open sand. I break off dead palm fronds and lay them over the bow and along the gunwale. I gather driftwood and stack it nearby in a way that looks messy, not planned. I want it to look abandoned, not cared for. I carry the water jugs back to the cave in 2 trips and place them deeper than last night. I rearrange the cave shelf so the sleeping platform is farther back and higher. I wedge stones under the boards to keep them from shifting. I tie the tarp corners to rock knobs with knots I can untie fast. I set up a second tarp outside, low and angled, not for shade, but for rain. Rain is not a guarantee, but it is the only source that doesn't force me back to the mainland. I use rope and bungee cords to tension it so it won't flap in wind. Flapping attracts attention and also tears the tarp. I need containers. The big jugs are for storage, not for catching rain. I have one smaller bottle, and that is not enough. I dig through my tool bag and find a cut-off piece of fuel line that I kept out of habit. I use it as a spout, tied to the tarp corner, angled down. It isn't clean, but it directs water into a jug without splashing everywhere. I make a second rule. I do not drink from any rain catch until I have a way to filter and boil it. Birds sit on tarps. Dust sits on tarps. Salt sits on tarps. I can't afford a stomach problem out here. I set up a toilet spot away from the cave, downwind, behind scrub where it isn't visible from the water. I use a small folding trowel from the first aid kit, meant for camping. I dig shallow holes and cover them each time. I keep a separate trash bag for waste and wipes. I tie that bag shut and stash it under rocks far from my clean zone. I don't pretend it is pleasant. It is work, and it prevents sickness and insects. The day turns into a list of tasks that keep stacking. I gather more driftwood for a cooking area and set it under a rock ledge so it stays dry. I find a flat stone and set it near the cave mouth as a prep surface. I keep the stone away from where sand drifts. Sand in food ruins teeth. I take inventory of what I have and what I lack. Water is limited, food is limited, batteries are limited, fuel is limited, the handgun and one spare magazine are limited. Every time I pull a zip tie or a strip of tape, That supply goes down and does not come back unless I risk a trip to the mainland. I try fishing. I don't have a rod. I have line in the shed stash, a short coil of nylon. I tie a simple hand line with a hook I find in an old tackle pouch washed up near the rocks. The hook is rusty. I clean it with a wipe and rub it with oil from my toolkit. It won't make it sterile. It will slow rust. Bait is a problem too. I flip rocks and find small crabs and worms. I keep my fingers away from sharp shells. I get one decent bite and pull up a fish that is too small to bother with. I throw it back. I don't waste time cleaning something that won't feed me. By midday, the heat is up and the cave stays cooler. I take a minute to sit on the rock shelf and write on the back of my work order with my cheap pen. I write Day 1 Island at the top. Then I list what I drank. 2 swallows at night, 1 swallow at dawn, 2 swallows after work. It looks small on paper. That is the point. Sound carries across water. I keep reminding myself of that. When I work outside, I keep my tools from clanking. I wrap metal handles with tape. I set rocks down instead of dropping them. Even my footsteps change depending on where I walk. Sand is quieter than shell. Rock is loud if I slip. In the afternoon, I hear distant engines again, farther than last night. 2 different boats. One passes north without slowing. The other slows near the far side of the island and then moves on. I keep my head low and stay inside the cave for a while, watching through the entrance gap. When the water calms near evening, I test the outboard without starting it. I tilt it, check the prop for fishing line. Clear. I open the fuel line connection and sniff. Fuel smells stale. It will run, but it will foul the carburetor sooner. I don't have spare parts. I do have tools and patience. Patience doesn't fix a dead motor. I decide I need more containers and a better filter setup before I can trust Rainwater. That means a mainland run. That also means fuel and noise and being seen. I run the decision in my head until it stops spinning. The island buys time. It does not solve the long game. Just before sunset, the sky to the south flashes bright for a fraction of a second. It isn't lightning. The light is steady and wide. Then it collapses into a dark smear. A second later, sound reaches the island, a deep boom that rolls across the water and then bounces off the rock around the cave. I stand at the cave mouth and stare out toward the channel. A large yacht is out there, far enough that it looks small, but close enough that I can tell it is burning. A plume rises from it, darker than the earlier smoke inland. The boat lists. The fire grows in bursts, not steady. That suggests fuel tanks or onboard fuel lines feeding it. I do not move toward the skiff. I do not start engines. I watch. The blast already happened. The next danger is what comes after it. People abandon boats when they burn. People go into lifeboats and dinghies. If the infection is on that yacht, the water will not protect anyone. Water only slows movement. The yacht keeps burning into dusk. I see small lights flicker near it, spotlights or handheld lights. Then one light drops, then another. The yacht's glow is the only steady thing out there for a while. After dark, the burning yacht becomes a floating beacon. I stay inside the cave and keep my own light off. The heat from the fire carries no warmth to the island, but the light changes the whole waterline. Anything moving on the water is easier to see in that glow. Anything on shore is easier to see too. I eat cold tuna from a packet and chase it with one careful swallow of water. I keep the trash inside a sealed bag. I do not leave food smells outside. Animals don't care about apocalypse rules. I sleep in short segments that night, not by choice, but because exhaustion wins for minutes at a time. Each time I wake, I listen. Water, wind, distant crackle from the burning yacht, then silence. Near the middle of the night, a new sound shows up. Not engine, not wind. A slap and scrape repeated, irregular. It is close enough that I hear it clearly from inside the cave. Something is bumping the rocks on the far side of the cove, where the current pushes in. I crawl forward and peek out. The sky is dark, but the burning yacht's glow puts faint light over the water. Something low is drifting toward the rocks. A small inflatable maybe. It rides up and down, then bangs the rock again. I stay still and watch. Two shapes are in the inflatable. People, both slumped. One is lying across the other. No paddling. No active movement. That could mean injury. That could mean exhaustion. That could mean something worse. I back into the cave and grab the dock hook and my flashlight. I keep the flashlight off. I grip the dock hook in both hands and move out along the rocks toward the cove edge. I keep low, using the rock ridges to break my outline against the water. The inflatable bumps again, then catches. It is half stuck, half floating. A third shape shifts inside it. That movement is fast and sharp, not the slow adjustment of a tired person. I stop. I do not go closer. I wait and listen. A wet noise carries over the rocks, then a short, harsh sound that is not a word. The same kind of sound the attacker made back at the marina when he was blinded by powder and still came forward. I step back, slow. I do not run. Running creates noise. Running also leads to slipping. I retreat to the cave mouth and wedge myself behind a rock column where I can see the cove without being visible from the water. The inflatable shifts again. One of the figures sits up jerky, then collapses forward, then sits up again. The movement repeats in short bursts, as if the body is fighting its own balance. The other figure stays slumped. A soft splash follows, then a louder one. One figure has fallen out, or climbed out. In the faint light, I see a head and shoulders in the water near the rocks. The figure claws forward, not swimming, more scraping and pushing against the rock face. I do not speak. I do not shine a light. Sound and light are both invitations. I back deeper into the cave and move gear farther from the entrance. I pull my water bottle and food bag back to the shelf. I keep the handgun in reach, still wrapped, and I set the dock hook beside it. The scraping continues outside. Then it stops. Then it starts again, closer to the cave side of the rocks. The infected has found an angle. It is using the rocks as a ramp. I choose a position that gives me space to retreat. I do not stand at the cave mouth. I stay back, so if the infected enters, it has to cross open cave floor and climb up to my shelf. That climb costs it time. That time is my chance. The infected appears at the cave entrance edge, half lit by the fire glow. Clothes soaked, hair plastered down, skin pale. It doesn't look undead. It looks sick and broken and aggressive. It doesn't pause to think. It jerks its head around, reacting to sound that I cannot hear. Then it steps into the cave. I stay still. I do not want it to lock onto me. Its eyes scan, but its focus is weak. It angles toward the back where my water jugs are stored. Plastic smell maybe draws it, or it follows the cave's deeper darkness. It moves fast in short bursts, then stumbles, then corrects. I hold the dock hook and let it come farther in. The infected trips on uneven rock and slams one hand down. The sound echoes. It snaps its head toward the echo, confused for a second, then surges again. When it reaches the point where it would have to climb to the shelf to reach me, I move. I thrust the dock hook forward and pin the infected's shoulder against the rock wall. I do not stab. I shove, hard, using the hook as a lever to keep distance. The infected thrashes, arms reaching, fingers clawing at air. I angle the hook downward and push it back toward the cave floor, forcing its torso down. It tries to stand, but the hook keeps it bent. It snaps its jaw at the hook shaft, teeth clacking on metal. I use my other hand to grab a loose coil of rope and loop it over the infected's neck and shoulder, not tight enough to choke, only tight enough to control direction. I pull the rope and the hook together, steering it away from my shelf and toward the entrance. It resists, jerking and twisting, but it reacts more to pressure and movement than to pain. It is strong in a crude way. My arms start to shake from the effort, so I change the plan. I do not try to wrestle it in the cave. I use the cave shape. I step sideways and guide it toward the narrow choke near the entrance where I stacked rocks earlier. The rocks reduce the width. The infected catches on them, stumbles, tries to climb over, then slips. I keep pushing. I keep pulling. Once the infected is half out of the cave, I shove harder. It falls onto the rocks outside and scrambles, slipping on wet stone. It makes that harsh noise again, louder now. That noise echoes off the cliffs. I freeze for half a second, then keep moving. I need the infected out, but I also need silence back. I step out enough to hook the infected's leg with the dock hook and yank. It tumbles down toward the waterline, sliding on algae slick rock. It hits the edge and drops into shallow water with a splash. The splash is loud. It carries. I do not stand there staring at my work. I retreat into the cave and pull the rocks tighter at the entrance, narrowing the gap more than before. I do not seal it. I leave a path for myself. I also leave a trap angle that forces anything entering to slow down. Outside, I hear the infected thrash in the water. It claws at rock and scrapes upward. It slips and falls again. It keeps trying. It does not get tired fast. A second infected voice answers from the cove, farther away, sharper. That means the inflatable had more than one infected or someone turned out there in the boat. The sound draws them together, and now I have a new problem. Noise is multiplying infected attention. I crouch near the cave mouth and pick up a fist-sized rock. I do not throw it at an infected. I throw it far, down the beach, into the water where it will splash and echo. The rock hits and makes a loud slap. The infected outside snaps its head toward the new sound and pivots. It stumbles off along the rocks in that direction, chasing the splash. A second shape follows in the water, pushing toward the same point. I stay still until the sounds move away. Then I make another decision. I cannot keep the cave as a shelter if lifeboats full of infected keep washing up. I need a way to detect them earlier and redirect them away from the cave mouth. At first light, I move out and scan the cove again. The inflatable is still snagged on rocks, half deflated now. One body is slumped inside, unmoving. The second is gone. I do not go near it. I keep distance. I have no reason to touch it. It is a hazard, and it is also a signal that more may come. Out on the water, the yacht is still burning. Lower now, more smoke than flame. It lists deeper. I see no movement around it. That does not mean nobody is there. It means I cannot see from here. I spend the morning building a warning system. I run thin rope from a rock near the waterline up toward the cave approach path. I tie small pieces of driftwood to it at intervals, so if something pushes through, the wood taps rock and makes a soft clack. It is not a loud alarm. It is enough for my ears inside the cave. I also set 2 decoy noise points. I pick a spot down the beach away from the cave and hang a loose line with shells on it. Wind will move it and make faint sound. If an infected follows sound, that point can pull attention away from my entrance. It is not perfect. Wind changes. Tide changes. It is still better than nothing. I work on comfort too, in the plain sense. I build a better sleeping pad by layering dry seagrass under my tarp and covering it with a trash bag split open, then another layer of cloth from an old shirt. It isn't a bed. It keeps rock from cutting into my hip. That matters when sleep is already thin. I organize the cave in zones. Water and food in the deepest spot. Tools and first aid in the middle. Sleeping platform farther back but with a clear line to the exit. Trash sealed and stored away from everything else. I do not let the cave become a pile of gear. A pile is a trap. I check my cut from the mainland glass in my mind, then realize I never got cut. That was a near miss that did not happen yet. I look at my hands anyway. Small nicks, dry skin, salt cracks around my knuckles. Nothing serious. That can change in one mistake, so I tape 2 fingers with athletic tape from the first aid kit where the skin is splitting. Tape costs supply, infection costs more. I fish again and catch something medium, enough to be worth cleaning. I do not cook inside the cave. I cook outside behind the rock where smoke can drift upward and away, and I keep the fire small, fed with dry twigs, not big logs. Big fires create big signals. The fish cooks uneven on a flat stone near the coals. It tastes of salt and char. I eat slow and then drink a careful swallow of water. I hate using water for food cleanup, so I wipe my hands with a damp wipe and then wipe again with a dry rag. The rag becomes dirty fast. Everything becomes dirty fast out here. Late that afternoon, another lifeboat appears. This one is rigid, not inflatable, and it is farther out. It drifts with the current, moving in a slow arc toward the island's rocky side. I watch it for a long time from behind brush. There are 3 people in it. 2 sit upright. 1 is slumped. The upright ones aren't paddling. They aren't scanning. Their heads move in quick snaps. Their arms move with sudden reaches. The lifeboat bumps a wave and one of them grabs the boat's side and shakes it. I back away from the beach and move along the island interior, keeping scrub between me and the water. I do not want them to see motion on shore. If they see me, their chase line locks. Then they will push onto land, and I will be forced to handle them close. The lifeboat drifts past the cove and continues along the rock line, then scrapes the reef edge and stalls. I hear the scrape clearly. One of the infected in the lifeboat stands, wobbles and falls. The movement is clumsy, but the intent is direct. It wants shore. I do not go toward it. I do something that feels wrong and still makes sense. I take a rock and throw it into the water on the far side, away from my cove, hard enough to splash. Then I throw another rock farther down. I create a path of sound away from the cave. The infected reacts. It pivots and jerks toward the splashes. The lifeboat doesn't move, but their attention shifts. Their heads angle. Their bodies lean. They claw at the boat's rim. They are stuck on reef and their frustration rises as noise draws them away from the closest shore. I leave them there. I do not solve the ocean. I solve my position. When night comes, I keep my cooking cold again. I eat from cans and packets. I keep my light off. I listen to the island's small noises and the distant crackle of the yacht fire that is still dying out there. In the middle of the night, the shell line decoy down the beach starts clacking, not wind. It is a steady tap, then a scrape, then a heavier bump. Something is moving through it. I grab the dock hook and crawl to the cave mouth. I do not stand. I peer through the gap. A figure is moving along the beach, low and fast. The figure stumbles on rocks and recovers. The figure turns its head toward the clacking line and lunges. The decoy is working. It pulled one infected away from my entrance. It also created noise that can pull more. I need to end it before it becomes a magnet. I pick up a rock and throw it into deeper water, farther away, in a direction that leads away from the cave. The infected snaps toward the new sound and runs, feet slapping wet sand. It doesn't run straight. It runs in bursts, then corrects. It disappears into darkness beyond the cove curve. I wait for more movement. None comes close. That night ends in fragments again, short sleep, then wake, then listen. The next morning, I feel the cost of it in my decisions. Everything takes longer. Tool handling gets clumsy. That is how accidents happen. I force myself to slow down even when I want speed. By the 3rd day on the island, the rhythm is set, and it still isn't comfortable. It is a schedule that keeps me from wasting energy. Check the skiff. Check the water. Check the entrance alarms. Fish or forage. Reinforce the platform. Adjust tarps for wind. Scan the waterline at dawn and near dusk. Rain finally comes on the 4th day, light at first, then harder. The tarp catch works. Water streams down the fuel line spout into one of the big jugs. I let it fill without celebrating. I cover it and mark it with tape so I don't forget it is unprocessed. I need a filter. I build a crude one from what I have. A plastic bottle cut in half. A layer of clean cloth from a spare shirt. Sand washed and rinsed, then dried. Charcoal from last night's cold fire, crushed and rinsed. Another layer of cloth. It is not a magic device. It is a way to reduce debris and smell before boiling. Boiling costs fuel if I use the camp stove I do not have. I have only fire. Fire costs visibility, so I boil at the smallest scale I can manage, 1 pot at a time, using a metal pan I found washed up near the rocks, dented and half rusted. I scrub it and rinse it and treat it as my only cooking vessel. That day, I do one batch and stop. Smoke stays low. The water tastes flat and a bit smoky. It does not taste clean. It tastes safer than drinking straight from the tap. I store it in the smaller bottle and mark it with tape. On the 5th day, the yacht out there is no longer burning. It sits lower. The hull is still visible in daylight, a dark shape on the water. I see small boats near it now, 2 of them, moving slow. That suggests scavengers or survivors searching. I keep low and do not move on open sand while those boats are near. If someone is scanning shorelines, motion gives me away faster than a hidden skiff. That afternoon, wind shifts and pushes the smell of the sea into the cave. Along with it comes another smell, faint, sour, human. It makes me turn my head toward the cove. I step out and scan. A 3rd craft has drifted in, smaller than a lifeboat, more like a dinghy. It sits half swamped near the rocks. Something pale is tangled in the painter line, bobbing. I do not go near. I do not want blood contact. I do not want to touch anything that has been in infected water with infected bodies. The danger changes after that. It is no longer a single infected stumbling onto shore by accident. It is a pattern. Boats are abandoning people. Current is delivering the results. My island is down current from chaos. I have to treat it as a shoreline that gets new threats without warning. I adjust the plan again. I move my primary shelter deeper into the cave where the light from outside does not reach. I keep the front shelf as a staging area and the back as my real storage. I tie a 2nd exit route in my head, even though there is only one entrance. The exit route is the skiff. That means the skiff must be ready. That means fuel and tools must be positioned so I can move in minutes. I set a fuel reserve in a sealed can, wrapped in a trash bag, buried under driftwood near the skiff. It is not much. It is enough for one quick run if the outboard behaves. I also stash a small food bag and a bottle of boiled rainwater near it. That is the escape package. If I leave the cave under pressure, I do not want to run back for supplies. Running back gets people pinned. The next morning, a different sound hits the island. A motor, closer than before, coming straight toward the cove. It is not searching. It is coming here with intention. I drop low behind brush and watch. A small open boat enters the cove, maybe 16 feet, with an outboard that sounds stronger than mine. 2 men are inside. Both are wearing life vests. One holds a boat hook. The other has a shotgun resting across his knees. The muzzle points down, not out. That is still enough. The boat slows near my beach. The men scan the shoreline. One points toward the brush line where my skiff is hidden. That means the concealment was not enough for eyes that know boats. I stay still and watch them decide. They drift closer, then cut the engine and let the boat glide. Quiet approach. Smart. The man with the boat hook stands and leans forward, eyes fixed on the sand. If I let them come ashore and find my skiff, the cave becomes the next search. If I reveal myself now, I might control the distance. Either choice has risk. I grip the dock hook hard and keep the handgun wrapped in the bag. I do not reach for it. A gun is a last tool, not a first tool. A shout from the water interrupts the decision for me. Not from the men. From farther out, near the rocks where the reef stalled that lifeboat earlier. A harsh, broken sound, not a call for help. One of the men in the open boat snaps his head toward it. A figure is on the rocks, soaked, scrambling, moving with the same burst pattern. It must have made it off the reef during high tide and drifted closer overnight. Now it is on the island, and it has movement in front of it. The men react in the way people react when they still believe noise can solve problems. One yells, "Hey!" loud, sharp. The infected locks on instantly and charges. The man with the boat hook jabs at it. The hook catches shoulder and slides off wet fabric. The infected keeps coming. The man with the shotgun raises it and fires once. The blast echoes across the cove and slaps the water. The infected drops, then tries to rise again, then drops again. It stops moving. Silence holds for half a second. Then another sound answers from the rocky side. Then another. The gunshot traveled. The gunshot called. I can't see how many are coming yet, but the men hear it too. The man with the boat hook looks around fast, searching for the next target. The man with the shotgun starts the motor with a quick yank, and the engine catches loud. The second infected reaches the rocks near the cove edge and splashes in shallow water. It claws forward toward the sound of the motor and the earlier shot. A third follows behind, slower, half swimming, half scraping. The men back their boat away from shore, throttle up, and swing out of the cove. The infected follow to the waterline, then lose the boat's exact location in the waves. They pivot toward the shoreline again, searching for the next nearest movement. My island is now seeded with multiple infected, pulled in by a gunshot that was not mine. I stay hidden. I do not chase the men. I do not wave. I do not shout. I let them leave with their fear and their noise. I focus on what stays. The infected stay. The infected move along the beach in short runs, stopping, listening, then running again. One bumps the shell line decoy and turns toward it, clawing at the hanging shells. The line clacks and scrapes. The sound loops. I need the decoy quiet again, or it becomes a beacon that keeps them circling near the cave side. I move along the interior scrub, keeping bushes between me and the infected. I approach the decoy line from behind and cut it with my knife. The shells drop into sand with a soft clatter. I scoop them into a bag and retreat. The infected hears the small sound and pivots toward it. It runs, stumbles, then runs again. I'm already moving away, staying low, stepping careful. It reaches the spot where the shells fell and claws at the sand, searching. It does not find me. By late afternoon, the infected have spread out across the island's edge. I hear one scraping at rocks near the cave mouth, testing the entrance area. I do not challenge it outside. I do not give it a moving target. I wait inside, holding the dock hook and watching the narrow gap I built. When it pushes into the choke, the rocks force it to slow and twist. That gives me distance. I pin it with the hook again, keep it from climbing, and guide it back out with pressure and control, using the same method as before. I do not get close enough for hands to touch me. I do not let the hook slip. The work takes strength, and strength costs food and water. After I push it out and redirect it down the beach with a thrown rock splash, I sit on the shelf and drink a larger swallow than usual. I write it down. One full swallow after push. The note keeps me honest. That night, I do not light a fire. I do not cook. I eat cold beans from a can with a plastic spoon I found in the marina office stash. I wipe the spoon clean and store it in a bag. Small comforts matter when they reduce sickness and reduce waste. The next days become a cycle of containment without pretending I can clear the island. The infected do not patrol in a smart way, but they return to sounds and motion. If I stay quiet and keep them redirected to the far beach, my cave stays usable. I modify my warning system again. I stretch a line of rope across the approach path and tie it to small driftwood pieces that will knock rocks if something pushes through. I keep it loose enough that wind does not set it off. I test it with my boot and listen. Soft clack. Enough. I also start building a second shelter point, not a new home, a fallback. A shallow hollow under a rock overhang on the opposite side of the island, away from the cove. I stash a bottle of boiled water there, a can of tuna, and a flashlight with fresh batteries. If the cave is compromised, I can move without crossing the whole island back and forth under pressure. On the 10th day, rain returns, heavier. The tarp catch fills 1 jug in an afternoon. I filter and boil in small batches again, keeping smoke low by using the smallest fire possible and shielding it with stones. I keep the fire close to the rock wall so the flame is not visible from the water. I get better at it. Not perfect. Better. I keep my wood supply dry under a tarp and do not waste it on warmth. Warmth is comfort. Water is survival. I spend wood on boiling and on cooking only when the food needs it. At night, I sometimes hear distant engines, sometimes not. When I do, I keep still. When I do not, I still keep still. Silence doesn't mean safety. It means unknown. The next major change comes from the mainland again. Not a boat, a sound. A series of far-off pops that repeat in bursts. Not fireworks, not one shot. Many shots spaced out, moving along the coast. It goes on for a long time, then stops, then starts again farther away. The shots pull infected along shorelines. I see it in the way the infected on my island move. They turn their heads toward the far coast, then run down the beach in that direction, then circle, confused, then run again. Sound patterns matter. By the time 2 weeks pass, my supplies are lower. Canned food is down. Batteries are down. The duct tape roll is smaller. The first aid kit is still mostly intact, but the antiseptic wipes are shrinking. The biggest positive change is water. Rain gave me enough boiled water to stop counting swallows with fear in the back of my head. I still ration, but I can drink when I need to work. The biggest negative change is attention. The island is no longer a secret place in the world's map. Boats pass more often now, some searching, some drifting, some quiet. Once a day, sometimes twice, I see a craft out on the channel moving slow along the island chain. People are looking for safe ground. People are looking for other people. One morning, I find fresh footprints near the cove. Not mine. Boot prints, larger than my boots, with a tread pattern I do not have. They come down to the waterline, circle near the rocks, then head back. Someone came ashore while I was inside and quiet. Someone left without finding me. I follow the prints only far enough to learn direction. They lead toward the far side where the reef sits. That means the person was checking the stranded lifeboat. That means the person knows there are boats washing up. That person might return. That same day, the current delivers another piece of the yacht disaster. A life jacket floats in, torn, a cooler lid, a broken oar. Then, near late afternoon, a rigid lifeboat drifts close again, this time toward my cove. The lifeboat is heavier, and it rides deeper. It bumps sand and stops. Inside it are bodies. 2 slumped, 1 upright and twitching. The upright one turns its head and snaps its jaw, then stands and steps over the slumped body, trying to get out. This is not one infected wandering in by accident. This is a delivery of infected in a container. If I let it offload into my cove, the cave becomes a trap. I need that lifeboat away from shore. I move without thinking about being clean. I think about distance and tools. I grab the dock hook, a coil of rope, and I approach along the rocks from the side so I am not directly in front of the lifeboat. The infected in the boat snaps toward my movement and rushes to the nearest edge, hands scraping along fiberglass. I keep the dock hook between us and push the lifeboat outward, using the hook against the bow to lever it off sand. The boat is heavy and does not want to move. The infected keeps lunging, reaching toward the hook shaft. It bites at it once, and the teeth clack. I do not stand close. I plant my feet on rock, brace, and push in small bursts. I get the bow to shift an inch, then 2. Water slides under it. The lifeboat lifts slightly. That is the moment to commit. I loop the rope around the lifeboat's bow handle, keeping my hands on the free end. I do not tie myself to it. I use it to guide direction. I push again, then pull the rope sideways to swing the bow away from the cove. The boat rotates a few degrees. That changes how the current grabs it. The infected surges again, and one hand catches the dock hook shaft near my grip. I yank back hard, and the hook jerks free. The infected almost falls out, then catches itself and scrambles. It makes that harsh noise, loud. I let the lifeboat go for half a second and throw a rock into deeper water to my left. The splash pulls the infected's attention. It snaps its head toward the sound and lunges at the wrong side of the boat, off balance. That gives me space. I shove the bow again, and the lifeboat slides off the sand. The current takes it slowly, then faster. I keep hold of the rope long enough to angle it away, then I release it. The lifeboat drifts, carrying its cargo away from my cove. It is not a clean victory. The infected noise echoed. Any other infected on the island heard it. Any person nearby heard it too. I retreat into the cave and lock down, moving nothing, making no more sound than I have to. Within minutes, one infected from the far beach appears near the cove, drawn by the earlier noise. It runs along the shoreline and stops at the spot where the lifeboat was. It claws at the sand and rocks and then turns in circles, searching. It does not find the boat. It does not find me. It stays near the cove longer than I want. I do not try to drive it away with rocks this time. If I create more splashes, I create more attention. I wait it out. Waiting is a resource too. It costs hunger and it costs time, but it prevents bigger problems. That night, I sleep in the fallback shelter under the far rock overhang. I carry my go bag, a bottle of boiled water, and the handgun still wrapped. I move at dusk, when light is low but not fully dark. I step slow and keep my eyes on the shoreline. Under the overhang, the air is cooler and drier than the cave, but it is exposed. I can see the sky. I can also hear more. I hear distant engines and the soft clack of the rope alarm near the cave when wind shifts. That tells me the wind is changing direction and possibly pushing scent and sound in new ways. Near midnight, I hear an engine approach again, closer than usual, and it cuts off outside the cove. I stay still and watch the waterline. A small boat glides in without motor noise. A paddle dips, then another. Whoever is in that boat is trying to be quiet. A person steps onto the beach, one person only. A man, judging by body shape and movement. He crouches near the sand, feels along it, then stands and walks toward the brush where my skiff is hidden. He has a flashlight, but he keeps it off. He is moving by moonlight and memory. I do not rush him. I track him from my position. If I move fast through scrub, I will make noise and give away my location. I let him reach the brush line. He finds the skiff within seconds and grips the gunwale. He tests the weight and then looks back toward the water. He is signaling to someone. Two more figures step out of the boat. One is a woman. One is a younger man. All three move toward the skiff together. They whisper, low, but I can't hear the words. Their posture is focused. They are here for the skiff, not for rescue. I could stay hidden and lose the skiff. Losing the skiff means losing escape. It also means losing mainland runs. It means losing the only fast exit if infected flood the cave. That is not a cost I can take. I rise from the overhang and step out onto open rock where my silhouette is clear against the water. I keep distance. I keep my hands visible. I do not shine a light. I do not point the handgun. I hold the dock hook low at my side, not raised. Stop, I say, loud enough to carry but not a scream. Leave the boat. The three figures freeze. The man near the skiff turns his head toward me. The younger man takes one step back toward the water. The woman stays still, feet planted, shoulders tight. The man speaks first, low but firm. We need it. We're not taking food, only the boat. You take it. You strand me, I say. Walk back to your boat and leave. The younger man mutters something to the woman. The woman shifts her weight, scanning my hands. She is evaluating what I can do from this distance. She is also listening, because sound carries and infected respond. The man lifts his hands a little, palms out. No trouble. We've got fuel. We can trade. I do not step closer. Trade from there, I say. Set it on sand and back away. The man hesitates, then nods. He turns toward his boat and gestures. The younger man goes first, moving slow. The woman follows, still watching me. The man stays by the skiff for a second longer, then steps away and walks backward toward the waterline. He sets a small plastic fuel can on the sand and slides it forward with his foot. 2 gallons, he says, for food and water later if you got it. I do not answer the later request. I nod once to acknowledge the can, then point toward their boat. Go. They retreat into the water, step into their boat, and paddle out. The engine does not start until they are farther out, and when it starts, it is kept low. That tells me the man knows the rules too, Noise draws trouble. I wait until their boat is gone from sight, then I move. I approach the fuel can slow. I sniff it. Gasoline. Clean enough. I do not carry it into the cave. I stash it near the skiff fuel reserve and wrap it in a bag to reduce smell and exposure. The encounter changes another part of my plan. People are now searching islands for boats, not only for safe ground. My skiff will keep drawing attention. If I keep it, I need stronger concealment. If I lose it, I lose my exit. That means I must invest work into hiding it better than palm fronds. At first light, I drag the skiff farther inland into a shallow dip behind the dunes. It is harder work than the first drag. The sand is softer there. I unload the gear again and carry it in trips. I pull the hull with rope and body weight, using the dock hook under the stern to pry it forward. I stop often to listen. Once it is in the dip, I build a frame over it from driftwood and lash it together. I cover the frame with brush and fronds, leaving gaps for air so moisture does not rot everything. From the waterline, it becomes a low hump, not a boat outline. It is still a risk, but it is less obvious. I spend the rest of that day building small things that keep me alive longer. A windbreak at the cave mouth that blocks direct line of sight from the cove. A second rain catch tarp set at a different angle to work in different wind. A storage rack made from rope slings that keeps food off the floor and away from damp. A stone barrier that forces anything entering the cave to turn twice before reaching my shelf. By the end of the day, I sit on my platform and eat a small portion, saving the rest. I take one longer drink of boiled water. I write it down. I keep writing down water. That habit is boring. It keeps me from lying to myself. Out on the water, the yacht wreck is still visible, lower now, closer to sinking. If it goes under, debris will continue to drift for weeks. Lifeboats will continue to drift. People will continue to search. Infected will continue to arrive in the worst way, mixed into human movement. When night falls again, I do not feel settled. I feel organized. Organization is not safety, but it reduces mistakes, and mistakes cost supplies and blood. I lie on my makeshift pad with the dock hook beside me and my escape plan staged near the skiff. I listen to the island's edge and the water beyond it, waiting for the next thing the current decides to deliver. And that's where we'll stop for now. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me how the story hit you, what moments worked, what didn't, and what you'd want to hear next. And a big thank you to everyone supporting the channel. You keep this project alive. Until next time, Survivor. Jack's Nightmares, signing off.